Have you ever, maybe it's a guy thing, maybe it's not, maybe it's all of us. Have you ever been considered trading cars, and maybe you want a red pickup truck, 4-wheel drive with a certain kind, and all of a sudden that's all you see on the road? Have you ever noticed that? Well, why didn't you notice them before?
Good morning.
Well, it wasn't on your mind, it wasn't important to you. Now all of a sudden everybody's driving a red 4-wheel drive pickup truck. They're really not, you just happen to be more aware and more interested in it. Well, we're on Love is Not Rude this morning, and we talked last week about love. The opposite of rude would be, what did we say? Courteous. Courteous. And remember also that we said that the word originally, hundreds and hundreds of years ago in Old England, when you had kings and queens and courts, that if you were a member of the court, you were expected, get it, courteous, okay. If you were a member of the court, you were held to a higher standard. You were held to a higher standard of conduct. So, are we in a king's court? Are we his court, as it were? We are. And we are held to a higher standard. Now, remember now, in the 747 principle, we take the attribute of Jesus and what he has meant for us, means to us, and all of that, and then we take that and we apply it to our situation in our life. So if Jesus was courteous, and I'm afraid too many times, maybe we've all been there too, just like you haven't noticed that red 4-wheel drive truck going down the road till you wanted one or till you're aware of one, how courteous Jesus is. He said, now don't be like that diamond. You know, ladies love their diamonds, and a diamond has many facets to it. You turn it this way in the light and you see different facets of that diamond. Well, agape love has all of these different facets, and we are expected to have those attributes in our lives because Jesus has them in his. So that's, Luke 7:47. Now, one of the things that's interesting to me is, and I've got it in your notes there, some of these things I don't have, but I have that. In Luke chapter 24, on the road to Emmaus, what happened on the road to Emmaus? Was this pre-crucifixion, resurrection, or post? It was post. How post? I don't know about that, but anyway, pretty closely post. He hadn't been dead and resurrected very long. In fact, just a few hours. And he's on the road to Emmaus, and there's these two, well, there could have been apostles, but two disciples, we'll go with that. We're talking about Jesus, and Jesus comes next to them, and he says, we might say, what's up? What are you guys talking about? And you can imagine the look. Are you the only one in Israel that doesn't know what's going on here? And so they chat as they go down the road, and in verse 29, they drew near the village, and he started back in Moses and went all the way up to this time, and expounded. And they later say, how our hearts burn within us. But look at verse 28 and 29. As they drew near the village where they were going, and now notice, and he indicated, or some versions say he feigned, he indicated that he would go on further. In other words, I'm going on to Jerusalem. Good talking to you boys. I'm going to go on now. What did they say? Look in verse 29. But they constrained him, they invited him, saying, why don't you come in and stay with us? Abide with us, for it is toward evening and the day is far spent. And he went in to stay with them. and they fed him a meal. Did he have the right to kick in their door? Do you understand, boys, what I just did for you just a few hours ago and what's gone on in the last day or two or three? You understand that? He explained to them all of that, but Jesus is courteous. He was waiting to be invited. I don't know if I ever picked that up before, or maybe I read it. I just didn't quite get it, but that's not uncommon for me. Be pretty dense sometimes. Takes a while to get things. But he had just basically forgiven all of their sins, died on the cross, and yet he said, well, I want to go on now. And he waited for them to be invited into their house. I just find that interesting. Do you? Do you see that? In Ephesians 2 and verse 6, this is also in your notes, he raised us up with Christ and gave us a what? Gave us a seat with him in the heavens. Why do, we, not so much, you don't see as courteous a society as we grew up in, I don't think, but used to, you pull out a seat for the ladies. You do that now, number one, you're probably not going to do it. Number two, the lady's going to look at you and go, what? That's a society we live in, and it's too bad. But Ephesians 2 and verse 6 says that the Lord gives us a seat in heaven to be with him. And I don't think it stretches it too much. It doesn't say that. It doesn't stretch it too much that the Lord probably pulls it out for us. Pulls out the seat and says, here, you sit with me. Courteous. Courteous. In 2 Corinthians 2 and verse 12, it's not in your notes, but 2 Corinthians 2 and verse 12, excuse me, Paul's, number one, he's missing Titus. He said, I'm worried about Titus. But then he goes on to say that the Lord, notice, what did he say? The Lord opened the door for me to go into Troas. The Lord opened the door for the gospel to go to Troas. He opened the door. That's courteousness. Open the door for us. Does he open doors for you and me? Amon and Amit, we have talked about this before. When we learned about their history when they came to this country not too long ago, a couple of years ago, they tried to find they wanted to be a Christian, they just didn't know what that meant or how to do it. And there were doors that were shut on them. That the Lord opened a door for them to learn the gospel. Isn't that right? Absolutely true. The Lord does that today. He will open the door for us. He's courteous. Matthew 5:16. Let your light so shine before men, if I can get it right here, that they may see your good works and what? Glorify your Father who is in heaven. Let your light so shine. What's incumbent upon us to do then? It says, Beverly, let your light so shine. What does that imply?
You have to be out there.
We got to be out there, number one. Light doesn't shine in the cave. Now go sit in the cave dressed in black. He doesn't say to do that. He says, let your light shine. Light shines, you got to get out and about. Now, with all of these attributes, what does that imply too with our light? If we're going to let it shine for Him, then we got to be like Him the best we can. That's our model, that's our goal, right? It is. So now, I've helped you out here a little bit, but now tell me, in fact I even wrote it for you, but that's okay, don't look. Courteous. Courteous. 747 principle. John talked to me about the 747 principle in the context of being courteous.
Well, 747 principle being that he who is forgiven little loves little. And when we have realized just how much we've been forgiven, we're able to, being able to handle, to see that way for other people. And so in the sense of being courteous, we see how courteous that Jesus has been to me. And I'm able to turn around and show that courtesy to other people.
Perfect. Should it be hard to do that? Is it hard to do that sometimes? Oh, yes. Let's be honest about it. All of these things, it's not easy, but we have to do that. But what if people are not patient, kind, they're envious, they're proud, they're rude, they're selfish, they're not courteous to us?
Well, those qualities aren't contingent on others.
That's how our light shines.
Right.
Yeah. That's right. The darker the night, the brighter the light.
Something that I have not really absorbed until I read this just now. Let your light shine before others so that they may see your good works. Not just so they can see everything, so they can see your good works. That's why we let our light shine. And these are good works. Or ignoring all of these attributes in somebody else is a good hard work.
Right. Yes. All these things, they're so true. They're not easy, but yet they're good works. God expects us to do that. Why? Because He's more than done that for us. So can we not do it for others? Now, somebody go to Romans 12 and verse 18. We'll talk about this, then we're going to move on to selfishness. Whew, I read that one in a way. Boy, we can all be guilty of that at times, can't we? Romans 12 and verse 18. Whoever gets there first, feel free to read that. Giovanna.
If possible, so far as it depends on you, live peaceably with all.
Boy, that's filled, isn't it? That's a little simple statement, but basically it's saying do your best to live in peace with everybody. As much as what? As possible, or as much as it depends on you. Are you going to be able to live at peace with everybody? No. But as much as depends on you, you do that. You're going to have neighbors. Got one's on my case right now. So Veronica made her a pumpkin pie. Gonna try to do the coals thing. Coals on there. But as much as depends on you, live at peace with all. But you're not going to live with peace with everybody, because some people are just not going to do that.
They're not happy unless they're miserable.
What do you think about that second? Say that again. They're not happy
Unless they're miserable.
unless they're miserable.
That's Grandma and Grandpa saying.
I like that. It's true. I don't like it, but there are people who just walk around, and it's their, as Ken would say, their modus operandi. It's the way they are, and they're going to try their best to make you like that.
That's it.
Well, and sometimes they're successful. You got to let it go as much as depends on you. Carolyn and Bruce.
I think you have to look at why they might be miserable. Sometimes you have to scratch beneath the surface. I mean, I guess my thought is, there are people in this world who are just, that's their makeup, but if you scratch beneath the surface, sometimes you understand why they're miserable, and you can get beneath that and help them come out of that. And I
Some
think
of it's
that's part
pretty
of our
deep
job,
dig.
and those are the challenges in our world.
There are challenges. Sometimes it's more than surface,
Sure. Takes time.
but we can try. That's all we can do. We can try. Bruce?
Yeah, I think it's important that you're saying as much as it depends on you, be at peace with people. Because I think we can look at the world and just look at certain people and say, well, those people are just miserable. I don't want to be at peace with them. So I'm just going to avoid them. No, that's not what you're supposed to do.
Okay, good points. Chris?
We like to think we can change people. The only person we can change is ourselves. And if we can change ourselves around these, it's contagious. People will follow along and catch on and change themselves. We can't change anybody though, just ourselves.
I think that's true, and all we can do is let our light shine before men, that they may see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven, and do your best with other people. And the miserable will be miserable, and you can do the best you can do. That's all you can do. You're right. Can you force anybody to be a Christian? Can you force them? You cannot. They have to come to it themselves. Some never do. Some do. Some do, don't they? Do you ever give up? You do not. As long as there's breath, there's hope. Absolutely.
You said you never give up, but what about the scripture that...
Miss Literal, go right ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
that says, don't keep feeding pearls to swine and dogs?
There is, obviously that's truth. You do the best you can, but eventually you shake the dust off your feet and you move on as far as learning the gospel. That's absolutely true. There's some people with just no uncertain terms tell you to move on, boy, and just keep going. But sometimes you live with them.
I'm sorry.
You don't shake the dust off your feet if you live with them. I grew up in a household like that, where my dad was not a Christian until 7 weeks before he died. 7 weeks. My mother tried the pounding it into him for several years. Do you think that was successful? It was not. It just created so much tension in our house. So she said, okay, I'm here when you're ready. And that's all you can do.
That's the point.
That's all you can do.
Continue to be the right kind of example.
That's right.
And
Without
just-
words.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's not always words, is it? But you be the right example. They're watching.
That's where you let your
Let your light shine.
And live peaceably.
Live peaceably the best you can. Paul.
Let our light shine, but they say you can be blinded by that light also. And I think there's that, knowing how to let your light shine without blinding them.
Okay. That's right. And that's probably that browbeating part of it. You let your light shine, do the best you can, but you just can't continually beat them over the head. As Chris said, they have to want it more than you want it for them. I used to tell my students that. I can't want it for you more than you want it. I'll try, but you've got to want it. And let me know when you're ready. Chad.
I was just watching a TV show this season, and there was a person on there whose job was influencer. And it's like, that's a new job. So on the internet, you can be an
Get paid
influencer.
for that?
And that's your job. That's all of our jobs. We're influencers.
Oh, we are.
It's like she does it professionally, and that's what we do. We influence people. That's what we can do. She gets paid for it, I guess.
Well, I also, some crazy things going on out there. I saw, it was on one of the websites, like one of the news websites, it said that the new career is to be a professional hugger, snuggler. What? Said she made $75,000 a year. I think no. I don't think so, Scooter, on that one. But there's some strange things going on. Giovanna, then Mike, and then we're gonna move.
So just as a young woman, like just starting out my career, there are lots of different ways that the world wants to advise me on how to be and how to advance in my career. And then I read God's Word, And the contrast, it seems slight to someone who maybe doesn't understand who God is, but once you know who God is, you're like, this actually is a huge difference. Because the world will tell you like, oh, go get your own, like, be your own woman, like, focus on yourself and put other people down and stuff. And like, this is talking about something that's completely different. It's talking about like, put other people first. Remember that God put you first, so then you gotta put others first. You have to show that too.
That's right.
And that's hard sometimes to accept when the message is just focus on yourself.
It is. That's the message we get. And that's going to lead us, after Mike has his comment, that's going to lead us right into lesson number 6 with selfishness.
Go ahead.
Oh, good. It's okay, Mike.
No, we've moved on.
Oh, okay.
He's not being selfish.
Nice.
That's an example.
Very good, Chris.
I got $10 over here for you.
Love is not selfish. It sounds similar, but what would be the opposite of selfish? Selfless. Selfless. So we'll kind of use the positive and the negative here. Selfless. Part of this diamond that we're to strive for, that's very difficult, a facet is don't be selfish. We're going to lead into some of the things Giovanna said. Giovanna. Love never insists on having its own way. That's what selfish people do. Love is willing to sacrifice its own interests for that of others. That's what we do. Love does not demand its own rights, even though we have rights. And there's a man by the name of William Barclay, and I've quoted him here. I've got a couple of his books. I highly recommend him. William Barclay. He's a New Testament scholar. He really is. He's dead now. Notice what he says here, and we're going to focus on that a little bit. In the last analysis, there are two kinds of people, only two kinds of people in this world. Those who are continually thinking of their rights, and those who are continually thinking of their duties. That's profound. What do we hear the most of on TV? Do we have rights? Of course, we do. The Constitution guarantees those things. But we don't hear so much about the duties. It's harder. When you have duties, you put others before you. There are those that are insisting on their privileges, and those who are remembering their responsibilities. Love is not me first. And I was reading this. I found it interesting. We've all had pictures, right? Family pictures. Or pictures. We've had Thanksgiving pictures. We have this is a pictures crazy people. It's, hey, how you doing? Well, what do we love to do when we hit this little thing down here? Turn that thing around where it belongs. Oh yeah, you're looking good. We love selfies. Selfies make me crazy. I guess I don't think I've ever taken a selfie. Don't intend to if I can help it. I don't know. Yeah, I know, and that I know I'm a dinosaur. I'm old. When you look at a group photo and you're in it, be honest. Who do you look at first? Every single time. Oh, that's right. You look at you. So do I. Always look at you. Now sometimes the group photo can be good, but you'll have an eye shut. Or you won't be smiling. Or you'll have spinach on your teeth. Let's take another one. I don't look good. But if you do look good, and there are others who have an eye shut or spinach on their teeth, or their hair's not over the face, do you care? Not really. In this photo, I want to make sure I look good. Well, you've got the beginnings of a problem. I know that's kind of silly in its own way, but doesn't that kind of illustrate a little bit the point? And if they have their hair in their face or spinach on their teeth, and you're looking good, makes you look even better. I like this picture a lot. Gotta be careful with selfishness. Rights, yes. More than rights or duties. Now, having said all of that, I got a lot more material here. Obviously, you've been through it, but give me some examples of what we see on a daily basis in the world that we live in, whether it's at school or at work or at home, church. Do we see that? Do we see that? Are we around that every day? We are. We got to be honest about it. We are. And if we're not careful, what can the world do? And you touched on it, Giovanna.
It'll like turn you into that. Sometimes without you even noticing, because if you're not, it's like that story that Jesus told with like the person who had the spirits taken out of him, and then because he was just like empty, more came in. So it's like if you're, like it's great you're changing your habits, but then you gotta fill it up with something good. You can't just like let it be.
It's called the law of empty spaces. Have you seen that in your garage? Or in your house, a corner in your house, or a room? You say, well, it's empty. Brother, it's not going to be empty long. The law of empty spaces says, oh, you're going to fill it up. Well, it's the same way in here. We have to empty ourselves of these things, but we have to fill it with better things. That's called a refining process. We refine ourselves. When you have gold or silver, and there are elements or there are impurities. Oh, I can't be time already. Have impurities in these metals. Well, how do you make 100% pure gold, or close as you can get? You've got to melt it so that the impurities run off, and what you have left is silver or gold or whatever. You see that? You ever going down the road and traffic is bad, the weather is bad, every traffic light seems to be red. What kind of day you having? Oh, in other words, everything funnels through you.
Of course.
You're at the right class. Here's a news flash. Everything does not funnel through us. And the days are not made to be perfect just because of us. And because we hit every traffic light or the weather is bad, it's not about you or about me. Now let me tell you who leads that parade. That'd be me. We've hit every light this morning on the way to church. Every one of them's red. Really, every one of them. Really.
But I think when that happens, maybe that saved me from having an accident further on if I hadn't not stopped.
I love your attitude.
You'll feel
I do.
that way if you're running late.
Yeah. Well, it seems that way too.
Well, I don't have a deadline.
We want to read this verse. I want you to think about it. We'll finish this one up Wednesday night because I got to start moving a little bit faster, or we're not going to get through before the semester's over, or class, or quarter's over. James 3 and verse 16. Someone, I've got it, but somebody read that. If you got New King James, if you got what version you got?
I have ESV.
ESV, perfect. Read it.
James 3:16.
James.
For where jealousy and selfish ambition exist, There will be disorder in every vile practice.
Okay. Who has a New King James? Jan?
For where envy and self-seeking exist, confusion and every evil thing are there.
Anybody have another version?
American Standard.
New American, read it, please.
Where jealousy and selfish ambition exist, there is disorder in every evil thing.
Is selfish a big deal? Being selfish a big deal? God said it is. He says it causes trouble, and it says all sorts of evil and cruel things. And what? And the like. Rebecca.
I think that selfishness is pervasive, either as an attribute or a problem to each of the other characteristics of love. I think that you can draw a line straight back to selfishness. Why are you impatient? Because they're inconveniencing you. Why are you not kind? Because they weren't kind to you and you want to get your own. Why are you proud? Why, you can attribute any of those back to selfishness.
I think that's absolutely true. That's a really, really good point. So many things boil themselves back to you wanting your way, to the exclusion of others. Now, we're going to, on the next page, which we'll get onto on Wednesday, the Lord expects us to look after ourselves and our families. He does. But not to the exclusion of others. That's what that means right there. Chris.
To Rebecca's point too, I think that most, if not all, sin is selfish to some aspect.
It is. It absolutely is. In fact, and we'll look at the bottom of page 18 under 5B. Government corruption, corporate greed, robberies, murders, rapes, I don't have that one there, but divorce, sexual infidelity. What's the commonality? What's the common? Selfishness. It's selfishness. It is. I want to satisfy, oh that's right, me.
I want it right now.
Now, and if it hurts you,
Yeah.
tough. The Lord said, oh my, don't be like that. Don't be like that. Because this is key to everything before and everything coming after. We'll we'll finish it up on Wednesday night, but really going to be thinking about that this week, be studying about it. Very, very good comment today.